Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the e-open house for Trend Global. Today we have two very special guests here with us today. Firstly is Josh. Josh is the academic director here at Trend Global, as you can see from his lovely background. And over there we have Jom. Jom is a architect from Columbia University. So today is just going to be a very informal kind of conversation that we're having, really about what it's like in the landscape right now and what kind of skills uh, do you it's needed to thrive in the landscape, in the built environment landscape, specifically BIM skill sets, because we all know
Mm.
that BIM is quite a hot topic these days.
Yeah.
So we just want to get to know you better first. There'll be a poll that pops up. So you can just let us know who you are, which industry you're from. You can also let us know in the chat, like what you know of BIM. Are you new to it? Are you resistant to it? Do you feel it's not very useful? You feel that it could be enhanced, or you think it's great, and you're just here to like hear more about it. So you can just put that in the chat. Okay, I guess for Jerome and Josh, you can also do the poll as well. So what am I? I'm other.
I am, yeah, let me do this. I guess you could say that I'm an architect.
Okay, okay, fantastic. We'll release the results shortly. So yeah. So for those of you that are here, you can still place your comments about BIM on the chat so that we know what you think of it. Moving forward, so today this is today's agenda. Basically, it's just going to be a conversation, like I said, and after that it will be a Q&A session, and finally we're just going to talk more about the offerings that we have here at Trend Global and how we can really help you to thrive in today's industry. So who are we? We're Trend Global. We've been around for 15 years plus. We specialize in building related academic degrees, diplomas, and masters as well. Uh, Currently, if you're from the built environment industry, you would have heard of Harvard University. About one third of the Singapore's built environment industry has a degree or masters from Harvard. Very recently also, we partnered with University of Salford. University of Salford offers the Masters in BIM, and we are the only one in Singapore that's offering the Masters in BIM currently. I'll tell you guys more about that later. What else do we do? We also conduct workshops and events, such as this one that you're having today. Um, the event that we conducted before COVID that was really good was this BIM VDC workshop with VR Collab. VR Collab is a startup, and they specialize in a sort of a virtual reality collaboration platform for engineers, architects, anybody who wants to collaborate and really take the BIM models to the next level. I can share more about them at a later point. But yeah, going on today with the speakers right here, Jerome and Josh, do you want to just introduce yourself a bit, just a little background? Maybe Josh, you can go first.
Hey, hi, I'm George, and I am the academic director for Trend Global College. Been with Trend Global for quite a long time. Was teaching with Trend Global part-time almost like 10 years ago, but recently
Wow,
joined them 2 years ago. Mm.
nice.
Spent quite a number of years in the built environment for real estate, facility management, construction, and contracts, I think. Yeah. Mm.
Okay, nice, nice. How about you, Jerome? Tell us a bit more about yourself.
My name is, it's pronounced poem with a J. Um, I have an intense background in architecture, in undergrad and master's from Columbia, and then worked for all of the big firms, Herzog and Demeron, KPF, Foster and Partners, and studied Revit and BIM in school and practiced it in the office. So a pretty good understanding of the software as we've been using it in the office, also academically. I mean, yeah, I guess I have a pretty sort of good understanding of how the market is today, and I am basically a trained architect still, and I am in my spare time I like to play the piano. I
Wow.
ride my bike, and I read memoirs.
Okay, nice.
Outside of architecture.
Let's get into the thick of things. I talked to quite a number of people within the industry, and BIM is one of the latest tech developments in the B industry. I mean, it's been around for quite some time, but I would say that Singapore government just mandated it about a few years ago. Maybe for those of you who don't know what BIM is, for Josh and Joe, could you tell us more about what it is? Maybe you could tell us in a few sentences. Yeah.
Yeah, I think basically BIM, building information modeling, it's uh, it started off as a three-dimensional kind of a model, as the name implies, modeling of the two-dimensional traditional design representation, but it has gone a lot more than just three-dimensional. Now we are talking about 8-dimension for BIM. So BIM has become more like a technology enabler for the construction industry because, as you know, notoriously unproductive and notoriously multidisciplinary, and therefore there's some silo. So BIM is now the technology that a lot look forward to, just to overcome some of these traditional uh, gaps in terms of productivity. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, reeling off of what Josh says, just said, it's basically it's smart modeling. It's the way it's the next step. It's the new language of the built environment. Really, we had ArchiCAD, AutoCAD, where it's two-dimensional drafting. BIM is really where suddenly everything that you do is fully coordinated from the beginning to the end. Everything that you do is done with intention, and has a life all the way till the end. So no line that you draw is useless from the beginning. Really, everything is smart and has parameters and has data. So it's a standard because it's the way of the future. It's mandated because it's how the industry it's how the industry is to be practiced.
So if it is that good, right? Which is actually our next question. If the software is that good, or the practice and the thought and the workflow is that good, why do you think that the BE industry is taking such a long time to adopt BIM and use it? Yeah, maybe Joe, we can answer it from the architect point of view.
It's a lot of things. It's a lot of people don't understand what it is. They have an idea of what BIM is, and they think that it's a one-stop shop. They think that it's like hiring a sort of an image maker. So they'll be like, okay, now government, whatever the industry says, we have to have a BIM model, so let's hire a BIM coordinator, do the project and hand it over to the BIM coordinator, and then we're done. But that's not how it works at all. And that's probably what's hindering the industry the most, because BIM is really, it's how you begin the project and how you end the project. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of understanding. Really, the process of it is very smart. So that so because of the sort of misconception about what BIM is, what Revit is, it's working against the very idea of its efficiency, if it's of its effectiveness, because they really just think that it's that easy. Let's hand it over, but it's really from the ground up. Everybody has to know how to use this software. That's the biggest hindrance with the industry. They don't get it.
Josh?
Yeah, I like the way Job has described it, is as though Beam is, by the way, kind of like a requirement fulfillment, but really Beam is the beginning of digitalization of your company and your business if you're in the built environment industry, because it has to have some form of digital representation in order for it to be easily transmitted and easily manipulated and easily collaborated. Otherwise, you don't reap the benefit of digital transformation. And I think what is hindering the built environment industry is because it is too diverse. We have the AEC, the architectural and engineers, and then we have the contractors, and then we have the government and the developers and the owners, and all with different kind of requirements and expectations. So it's like many people are touching different parts of the elephant and thinking what the elephant is. So it's the same kind of situation, or every time when any industry, not just built environment, any industry wants to talk about transformation and digitalization. Yeah, it's more like a culture way of thinking, like what Joe has mentioned. It's the way of thinking has to start right, and to get everybody on board. Otherwise, it's very tough. So more than just a technical aspect, but also the cultural aspect.
Exactly. It's like they don't understand. It's the anxiety of not knowing. They don't really understand that there's a learning curve, but it is an essential learning curve. So they keep it at a certain distance and cast sort of ideas about it. But the truth is, it's just learning another language, and it's an essential.
So do you think that because companies or main contractors and subcontractors even can't really see the benefit to their profits or the cost savings, the immediate effects, do you think this is one of the reasons why people don't adopt BIM?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the many. I interviewed for a firm here recently, and they asked me like, do you think we should move to Revit? I don't know. It's a big investment. And to me, you just get left behind if you don't. Literally, if you work for a firm where they're not using BIM or Revit, it's like learning an outmoded. It's like buying a product without that's no longer in production. It's not the way of the future, right? So a lot of it is, the scare is really that wow, I really have to invest so much to train my staff. Well, you do. That's the truth. But that's the new normal, and it would be a disservice to your staff and to your consultants if you don't get everybody up to speed. Literally, the new sort of the accepted mode of production, the way that AutoCAD was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I call this the business case problem. So if you do not have a very strong business case, then you do not know what you're doing, you see. And therefore, you tend to focus more on the cost rather than the benefit. It has to be benefit first, where you envision and envisage how your business activity will progress to another level because of this BIM technology, and therefore you invest, anticipating the returns. You're not looking at how much cost, and therefore I am going to perhaps not take the pain or not take that step.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe like going on to the next question, when you say about benefits, how would you guys say that BIM benefits the company, maybe in terms of like improving the workflow.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we have some students, in fact, whose companies are just within our college. Some students whose companies are already rather progressive. The likes of Soybeal, Sabah, Jurong, they are exploring some of this beam, mobile beam, etc. So it is already happening. It is perhaps at the experimental stage. Mobile beam gives you that imaging capability that's real time for you to monitor site safety, site progress. There are some startup that have some prototype that is able to automatically scan your site progress, and you don't even have to go to site anymore just to um, see what's happening. So you have to see Beam as really at a higher level and not at the just CAD, AutoCAD itself. So if you see Beam at a higher level, then the workflow can be redesigned or completely changed to be more aligned with what you are already experiencing in the digital economy, right? So you look at a smartphone, you have things, your weather data, you have it real time, you're able to analyze it. So similarly, Beam can do the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. And that's more like the interface with consultants, outside of the production, right? Because it's so easily transferable because it's so rich with data, right? So, but on the other hand, because coming from an architect's office, coming from an office environment, being the sort of person in front of the software, I can tell you right now, I can't imagine working without BIM anymore. It's once you experience the satisfaction of everything that you do is automated. Every line that you draw is smart and is coordinated, and you don't ever have to draw something that just lives on a shelf. That everything that you do counts. It completely changes your attitude in your workflow and the way that you communicate with your team, because it makes you super efficient, and everything that you do is just effective, and it makes, personally, it made our relationships in the work environment just very sort of clear. We were all on the same page. Nothing was redundant, because that's what effective BIM modeling is. You're never doing anything that doesn't make sense. So, but from a workflow standpoint, I think it's the whole board. And the most meaningful one is really your immediate teams. 'Cause it changes how you look at work. It makes you a smarter designer.
Yeah, I like the word smart. More than just the question that says how does Beam help to improve the workflow, I rather think of it as how does Beam help to transform the workflow.
Right.
Because it's not an add-on, it's more like a transformation if you really embrace what Beam is capable.
So maybe to give the audience like kind of an example, Jerome, do you have an example of how it transformed the workflow?
Yeah, I mean, everything that we do is fully coordinated. I can see exactly what my team member has done, and I can trace back who made a mistake. I can, no, you're never working in a vacuum, and then checking in with somebody. It checks you. It does the job for you. So it makes you a very smart worker. And you all went home at 5:30, 6, because everything was so easy. The model is the drawing, is the file, is the thing that is exported. So we never opened any other software. It it was the most satisfying experience, but only because we all knew how to use it.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
So
true.
I would say that it's the complete opposite. If the three, if even just one of us, or the two, or two out of the three, were not proficient. So it's only as good as how strong everybody else is in the software. Once you have somebody who doesn't quite get it, it does sort of falter. That's the big.
So how well, I suppose you're taking the example from your time in the US.
Hearing. Yeah,
So
exactly.
so how did BIM help the coordination between like the architects and probably the
Well,
engineers or
it's just like it's just like we are very used to using some of us could have used Google Docs before, right? So Google Docs, as you know, is in the cloud, and Google Docs has Excel, Word, and things like that. So let's say we pick up a Google Docs Word, and everybody works on it. So it's real time. There's a version control. You see, like what Joan has mentioned, who has done whatever amendment and whatsoever. It's up in the cloud, and it's very collaborative. So you can kind of share it, it's not exactly the same way, but it's the same kind of action. So you share with your engineers, share with your QS, etc. And it's collaborative real time. So it's no longer linear, but it's more like a hub.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's very satisfying. Yeah, I mean, from an architect's perspective, spend hours drawing, right? And suddenly when you learn BIM, you don't spend hours drawing. And when you revert back, the idea of reverting back to what it used to be just sounds so painful, to be honest. Yeah, it's like getting
Sounds so backward.
If you wear contact lenses for the first time, it's like, oh, now I can see. Why would I? It's a very enlightening experience.
Mm.
so maybe to draw on your US experience, like what do you feel helped the whole culture in the US adopt BIM?
Mandatory training.
Okay.
The fact that company-wide training, because we really shifted to BIM, and there were people that rejected it. But with Foster and partners, they accepted that it was the new normal. They didn't get it right the first time, and it took some sort of learning and restructuring company-wide. But that's not all of it. In the U.S., we were all just trained with Revit at school. So we came into the workforce and it was understood that everybody was equipped. I think that's one thing that was different. Coming to Singapore with Foster's Singapore here, the first thing I noticed was that nobody knew how to use BIM. I think that's really the biggest difference with my experience from the US and here, is that there is a dearth of people who even understand how to open a file in BIM. Even just the idea of it, we had to start from scratch, which was painful because I guess that's just how how the market is here. It's different.
Yeah, it's pretty diverse and it's very fragmented.
Yes, exactly. We need to catch up.
Sure. Let me just see. I think this part, did we cover it at the various stages?
All right. The various stages is real. Yeah, we did. But I mean, from schematic design to design development, to construction drawing, to rendering, to all of it, I can't see any phase where BIM doesn't make everybody's life easier.
Okay, that's great. Let's move on to the next question then. So I think this question also relates to what Josh you were saying previously about getting people to adopt BIM. and really seeing the benefits rather than a cost perspective. So like for Jerome, he was saying in the US, it was a mandatory training, and he was saying like, some people accepted it, some people didn't. From the Singapore context, what do you think would be a key benefit that you would propose to companies for this early adoption of BIM?
I think it's no longer at the early adoption stage already, because
Mm.
BCA has already legislated it that all architectural and structural and mechanical design,
Mm.
since 5 years ago, for architecture at least, a building that is of a certain size, it has to be in a beam model. Yeah,
Yep.
so I suppose all the architectural companies here in Singapore, who is rather sizable, would really be using beam. So perhaps it's not early adoption for the architectural company, but it's still early adoption for certain segment of the built environment. So we have a rather uneven beam landscape here.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
So,
That's yeah. I,
so for the laggards, what would be a key benefit other than the collaboration and everything that you
for the
guys just stated? Laggards meaning the ones who haven't gone through the early adoption phase.
I think I mean they will it's survival. It's very Darwinian, really. It's survival of the fittest. I think they will eventually come to face the reality that, oh, we need to catch on. That's the sort of lesson that will teach itself, because and they will realize it sooner rather than later. The laggards. What's unfortunate is that the training has to happen really early, right? And if you're not already mandating it in your office, then you're probably not hiring and asking that essential question, like, are which is that, are you adaptable to new software? That is really the question. Are you adaptable to technology? The forward knowing that, because it's going to be new technology every 5 years, right? But a lot of offices just hire for skills for today, right? So it's really sort of the ground up sort of restructuring of your office, but you have to understand what you're aiming for, right? And I'm sure it's a case by case basis. It's hard to tell. I think time will tell, but it's also the lesson that will sort of do the job for you. It's very Darwinian. You will see that the firms that will benefit and will succeed are the ones that have adopted this, accepted this, and sort of restructured stuff.
Josh, any insights on this?
I think it's a matter of time, and it's not very visible immediately. It's just like you spend money to earn money, so you wouldn't see the money that you earn so fast. And I wouldn't say it's critical, but it really depends on where you want to go, because your trajectory as a management or as a company may eventually lead you to a decline, because a company, as you know, has a certain life cycle. So if you do not move on to the next technology or the next economy, that's where we are right now, then your trajectory tend to be on a decline. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, some of the people that I've spoke to, they say that COVID is one of the the real blessings in disguise, for that matter. Because there was this question that I saw, like what changed or what helped digitize your company, and one of the options was COVID-19, and that's true, for many industries, like the F&B industry, and them surviving and changing their model. So I guess for the built environment industry also, especially the construction, seeing how the pandemic has panned out, there's going to be uh, social distancing at the work site, and how is that going to pan out, and also in terms of the number of workers that you can have at a particular work site, how you're monitoring them, how you are monitoring the work, that all has to be digitized, and I would you say that COVID is something that really would it's like a catalyst that spurs this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah.
It just make a lot of people rethink how to not do the same old because the environment is no longer the same. I think just take the real estate agency as an example, which I'm also quite familiar. The real estate agents, they are suffering a lot right now because they can't do property viewing and showing. But those who has gone ahead and invested in virtual tour technology, and they've gone ahead to invest in digital marketing kind of a platform, they are surviving. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I love that part of it, on sort of the sort of rendered part of the benefits of BIM at the client phase, but also I'm less worried about the sort of construction side in terms of the age of COVID. What I think, why I believe that knowing BIM and Revit is so timely in a time of a pandemic, and certainly post 2020 for the long term, is that it's really the age of essentialism, right? Whether we end up going back to an office or not, let's say that we do end up at an office, it'll be in shifts, it'll be a new state of affairs where you really have no to sort of to waste on silly things, right? Everything has to be coordinated with the next shift, the next team that will take over, right? So there's no time to waste on Illustrator and AutoCAD. Everything has to be coordinated. Others that choose to work from home can then pick up on what you're doing when you're in the office, when they then take your seat, right? So there's going to be split teams. So it's never been more essential to be efficient, and so otherwise you're really just wasting everybody's time, right? So that I know I'm already already started to experience, and we all collectively as architects, I can't imagine doing anything that's just not coordinated with somebody else. All of it is just, but why? It's taking up too much time. Yeah.
So
You see, for BIM, it is to remove almost everything.
Yeah.
The construction aspect has to be physical, right? It will probably have to be. So certain aspect can be prefabricated, but and done offsite, but almost everything else can be BIM.
Yes.
And because it's digitalized, information flows, decisions, and drawings, and tracking and whatsoever imaging can be done offsite, and it can be done at the comfort of your house.
Exactly. Well, everything else you can't. It's like, hand drawing, everything else just can't be coordinated. Yeah. I'm losing you guys' audio.
Yeah, no, Alex.
Sorry, I think I didn't switch on my mic. Yeah. So as I was saying, so with all these different factors that we were talking about, especially also the pandemic being a catalyst, would you say that every stakeholder of the built environment industry, from your main contractors, your architects, your engineers, even your facilities management, when they receive the models and maintain the asset value of the building, all of them need to be well versed with the different software, and probably the methodology of thinking.
That's a
Yeah,
good point.
certainly.
Yeah, go ahead.
You see, it's the built environment is like I said, pretty diverse, and there are different level, right? So the senior management, the management, and operational level. So really, what we are looking forward is a new era of construction technology, construction industry, whereby everybody, like what Jerome has mentioned, everybody's on board. Yeah, and it's a lot easier. So whether or not they pick up the skills, we have to talk about different kind of skills. So perhaps the operational aspect, they have to learn Revit, but perhaps for the senior management, they probably have to come for our course, yeah, to find out more about BEAM and having a mindset of BEAM.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, speaking from direct experience, even the client, right, will request it, right? Because it's, your contract will say that the staff has to have a BIM, whatever, right? But the client won't know what BIM is. But it would help a lot if the senior, the leads in every sort of consultant, every department of each consultant, architect, the facade consultant, the engineer, the sustainable design consultant, all of those guys at least have the basic understanding of what BIM is. So that is so essential, because most of the time they don't. Actually, probably 90% of the time they don't. They just also equally see it as, yeah, we're going to cover that part of the contract and we'll hire a BIM coordinator. And it's still sort of glossed over. And it's sad because, it's sort of like getting somebody to tell you to do something when they themselves don't know how to do it, or the very vague idea of it even. So what is really great, when I hope for the industry, is that the people that are making decisions have some slight understanding even of just the idea of BIM as just, it's not a one-stop shop. It's an infrastructural sort of way of thinking, right? And that, if you get them there, then you have half of your problem solved, because even the conversations with the client will be much more informed, because they'll know what the investment is. They'll understand that it's part of the conversation. It's not just, oh yeah, that's the last part, what we have that covered. It's not that simple. It's so much bigger.
Nice.
Yeah, certainly.
So maybe for the management level, I guess probably for this question is more for Josh, because we're talking today about the masters in BIM. How do you envisage that these masters would actually help them in their career, and also become better leaders of the future economy?
The full name for our new launch masters is MSc, Master of Science in Building Information Modeling and Digital Built Environment. So the new masters aims to fill a gap in the industry right now, because right now it's still as though BEAM is like an operational kind of thing, right? It's as though it is a part of a draftsman, or it's part of the designer's job. But really, we want to fill that gap in the industry to bring the thinking and whatever we have discussed about the whole host of benefit of BEAM to the senior management. So really, any manager, project manager, senior directors or directors, and even the government officials, anyone in the industry, from the contractors as well as in the region, would benefit from this masters, and eventually lead the company to transform the way things are done.
Joe, you want to say something? You had a point?
I mean, this is the first time that I'm actually hearing more details, of course, and it's just, I can't agree more how essential. I feel like this is the only degree that I kind of I kind of want to enroll. It's like, I mean, it's like because it's so much bigger than what people think. And I think the way that this, at least from my understanding, the way it is being approached by you guys' curriculum is that it's much bigger. It's much more of not just the conceptual side of BIM, but the actual industry of BIM, from senior management all the way to the worker bee. And that's, I don't see that being anywhere else. You see, my experience was adaptive components, right? And really from the design side. And in a way, I missed out on the larger thinking of it. And it's, I had to learn that on the job.
The job. Yeah.
But in a sense, all you need to know is how to think algorithmically and the larger idea of BIM, and everything else is easy.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting sort of, it's very high level the way that you guys are thinking. It's really attractive.
Yeah. Maybe for this part, I think we kind of answered it already about the new theories and new technology to thrive. So I'll just move on. Does, if you have any questions about what we've just talked about BIM or the course itself, you can type it down there. But I think I'll just go into, since we're already talking about the masters in BIM, to tell you guys a little bit more information. And of course, Josh can help me as well. So it's going to be a 24 months course. These are the fees. Of course, at Trend Global, we understand that cash flow is a problem for everyone, no matter if you're a manager or not. So there is a 4 interest-free installment plan that we have just for you. The next intake is actually this September this year. And looking at the course curriculum-wise, it is just 4 modules and 1 dissertation. For the 4 modules-wise, it's very different from a traditional master's, Josh.
Yeah.
Would you just elaborate a bit more about that?
So our 4 modules, we call it 4+1, 4 modules of coursework and 1 dissertation. The 4 coursework is 100% coursework, no exams at all. But do not be deceived that it's going to be easy. But what really the value we want to bring is hands-on theory, workshop, and guest speaker, and case study approach. So every one of them has the same kind of style and pattern in terms of delivery. Yeah. So unlike some of the masters, which is like 8 modules, ours is 4 modules, but our lessons are actually a little bit longer than the usual 8 course or 8 modules master. So they are split between 2 categories. One is on BIM, building information modeling theory and practice, and integrated BIM projects. The other category is more on the implementation of some of the possibility from BIM, for example, lean production and production management.
Yeah. I think one aspect that really draws me is the guest speakers. So it's not all just theoretical kind of knowledge that's being imparted, but guest speakers such as like Jerome coming from the
Jerome,
point of view, and
we
then
need your support.
yeah, and then
I want to enroll actually. I'm serious.
Yeah, but I think it's what we try to promote is really an environment where all stakeholders can come and really share that input. So the guest speakers that we do have, we try and get them from the different stakeholders as well. And the case studies as well would be one that everybody can look at it and
Yeah.
in a so hostile kind of environment. So actually, one of the guest speakers that we will be having for the next event is Rowan Collins. So Rowan he's actually going to do something like a snippet of what we're going to do at the Masters, which is just actually going to look at real life case studies for the company that he is working for, Gamuda at Kuala Lumpur. And through these case studies, we'll actually see how BIM solves some of the challenges that is being posed in the industry right now. Also, if you already do have challenges within your company that you feel you need technology to solve, or you wish that technology could solve it as well, feel free to write it to us, to present these pain points to us, and hopefully during this session, Rowan can actually address some of these concerns, probably that he has already addressed in his company through case studies as well.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna register now for his
Oh,
course.
okay. So sorry. Yeah.
So I'm gonna take a picture of that. Yeah.
Nice.
Just to remind myself.
Yeah, it's happening on the 25th of June, 7:30 to 9 o'clock. It's going to be online as well, so get ready for a good time of interaction. Also, we do have an incentive. So if you do pose a problem that you would like technology to solve, it doesn't really have to be BIM related, and our guest speaker Rowan chooses that pain problem, you can stand a chance to win $30 Grab voucher, which Jerome is a fan of, and you can spend on your next Grab meal, courtesy of Trend Global. Yeah. So yeah, do send us your problems. The feedback form that will pop up at the end of this webinar. There's a question that you can just type in that pain problem. At the feedback form also, you can let us know both for all three of us, Jerome, Josh, and myself, how we can improve during this event, what kind of topics you would like to hear, and also probably what aspects of BIM are you more interested in that we can talk about during our next event. At this point, if anybody has any questions that you would like us to address, you can type it in the chat as well. If not, we'll just wait for another like 5 minutes.
There's a question.
Yeah, but just going back to this part, do you guys feel there are any problems that we can actually bring up to Rowan from both your viewpoints? Yeah.
For me,
Yeah, I mean, just go for it.
a BIM-related problem.
Yeah, maybe an example for the audience. Yeah, or a technological problem actually.
So many. Oh my God. I won't get into the proficiency side. I guess from a tech standpoint, it's I guess it is a heavy software, right? So when you're working at an office and you're working from home, and you're remoting into your office computer, I have to admit that was difficult because it is the heaviest software. It was almost easier to just to get the software locally on your computer, right? But it's a challenge for larger companies that require a sort of larger sync. So that's one sort of in the age of working from home. But that's one example. But there's a lot more. I won't get into the rest yet. What about you guys?
I think
mute again.
I think I'm more towards the FM and real estate, and I think of course I've spent some time in construction as well. I think one of the issue at a big picture level is that a lot of effort has been invested in construction and design. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars, and that effort is all encapsulated in a BIM model, and often that is handed over to the FM. And what does the FM do with that? And they just leave it aside because they can't handle the beam information. So it would be more seamless and more productive if FM industry could make use of what is already invested.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, this is absolutely true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a key issue. So actually, we do have a question from the audience. What team members will need to be involved in the BIM process? Maybe anyone would like to take that question? Just,
I guess, let's say from a generally speaking, from, I guess, everybody that is in the production side and everybody that's on the presentation side, if it's a three-dimensional presentation. It's a two-dimensional presentation and it's just a partner that's presenting the output, then they don't essentially need to be involved in sort of in the BIM process, right? But they would certainly need to understand it. That sounds easy, but it takes a lot. So I guess the question is specifically the BIM process. It's the production guys, and anybody that's sort of, I guess one example is with VR Collab, right? The people that are sort of producing that side of it, the presentation, the rendered side. Yeah.
I think building on what Jerome has mentioned, the core for BIM, the core has always been the design aspect. So anything and anyone who is involved in the core, which is the design aspect, would have to be involved as the team. But out of the core, the secondary would be the decision makers and those who make use of the design for production, for example, prefab or contractors or suppliers or QS. That would be leveraging on what's already invested anyway. Yeah, from the core team.
Yeah, exactly. Because also, for example, I was dealing with the facade consultant. And if I'm not the senior. I'm sort of a leader of a team, but I'm not the senior management. But the highest level conversation, effective and efficient conversation with the facade consultant is the facade consultant who understands the model, right? So it's almost like a lot of the pushback that we were getting was difficult in terms of whenever senior management didn't understand, or didn't feel like they were part of the conversation whenever we were talking about the clashes with MEP, and they would have to see it in a sort of reduced version in a 2D plan and drawing because they couldn't read the model. So that was annoying, to be honest. Had they just been part of the process, we wouldn't be sort of like kindergarten teachers walking you through the model. So it would help that everybody just is involved with the process, right? Because it makes everything easier. You don't have a junior who has to stand up to upper management just to clarify, this is how it works. So that's again back to the whole issues with the pains of the current industry. But ideally, everybody's involved in the process in one way or another, at different degrees, at different scales. But it's really just about understanding what it is, right, and knowing the language so that you can then impart it to others and not be so loose and sort of almost irresponsible about how you then disseminate tasks.
So I hope that we have answered your question well. Like I said, if you have any BIM-related problems that you would hope for one of us to address, or any other questions, you feel free to write it down in the feedback form. But other than that, we thank you for your time. I know some of you haven't finished your dinner yet, so we'll get right onto that. But yeah, thank you so much, Joan. Thank you so much, Josh, for your time today. Thank you for that very uh, enriching conversation. And,
Yeah,
and I do hope that through this master's, we could really see a new way of thinking within the industry,
Yeah,
and
certainly. Yeah.
helping a lot of people. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say that,
Yeah.
for the last 10 over years, Trend Global has been teaching built environment education, but the environment has changed, the legislation has changed, so even our education also have to change. Yeah.
That is true.
absolutely. I think this is, I don't know, I feel like this is so essential, and I can't, I just can't imagine. I think what you guys are doing is like, I don't know any other sort of institution that's doing it. So it's really sort of positive, and it brings back my faith in the industry that I kind of lost a little bit when it's nice that this is happening. It's good to see that it's happening. This conversation. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, so do join us for the masters. I'm very sure that we'll have good conversations such as this at the masters program as well. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jerome. Thank you,
Bye. Thank you.
Alex. Bye.
Good night.
Connect
Good
later.
night, guys.
Ciao.
Bye.